Welcome to the 301 Club.
Welcome back,
Don't
guys.
forget to like and subscribe so you can follow us on our journey to financial freedom.
Yes, sir.
And we'll also help you build wealth in your 20s. And this
Definitely.
week we got taxes on the plate, right?
Yep, taxes. It's a lot, but we took our time, did our research, and figured most of it out. Still in the works. We got some questions we got to ask. CPA, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah, like a small business consultant
Yeah,
who's also a CPA. That would be a great tool to use
yeah,
to figure out kind of like our LLC is now established. So now we're working on expensing, like, for example, meals.
right.
You can expense a meal if you talk at least 50% of the time about business, and there's other people that are there a part of that are contributing to your business.
Right.
So that's like one example, but there's just so many things that an LLC gives you the capability to do when it comes to taxes.
Definitely, yeah. And I think we're gonna get into some of those things, I guess, today.
Yeah, I mean, because it's different when you're just a W-2 earner. I remember when I was making $7.50 an hour at Safeway, you know, back in like 2012. I had no ability to use these kind of situations, these tax situations that were like tax havens and things like that. Because first of all, I didn't really have access to capital to like hire someone to do those kind of things. But I highly recommend that if you're going to start a business, especially a rental property business, that you get maybe like some lawyers on your team and some accountants, small business consultants,
Yeah.
because we came from just working hourly jobs, but and that is earned income.
Yeah, it's different.
But now we're trying to get business profits.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's all and it's unfortunate, but it's part of the process where it's like it's two different ways to go about it. Either you're a W-2 earner or you're a self-employed, or you're part of a business. You're self-employed in your own business. And then like you were saying, there's like different advantages and things you can do when you have your own business. And that's what we decided to do, I guess, for people that are just like, found out about us. We're like in our 20s. I'm 26, you're 26, and we've just bought a property last year, and we decided to make it into a rental property. We're in the process of doing that now. We got some stuff in the works, talking, like you were saying, talking to the CPAs, talking to the right kind of people, making sure that we do everything legally and that we record our revenue and our income properly and do everything by the book. And you can consult with professionals, or you can subscribe, like, and follow us, and we'll give you a lot of the information that we've gathered. So we're like here to provide that, I guess, for everybody that's watching, some value, that they could save some time and listen to us, take one or two things away, and go about their day and maybe make something out of it.
yeah, I mean, specifically, we're going into talking about buy and holding properties, and right now we're full time, W-2 earners. That's kind of how we've built the capital to buy
Yeah,
this property. And
definitely.
what we're trying to do now with this property and in the LLC is especially is use the tax advantages of that situation. And so we went to an event this week. It was online, so I guess we stayed at home,
Yeah.
watched it, but it was from the nationalreia.org.
Yeah, Real Estate Investor Association.
Yeah, they had some pretty cool points, and I think there was like 7 of them.
Yeah.
Specifically, the first one was to pick your entity, and that means either an S corp or an LLC. Because essentially, once you start making more money, you're gonna want to choose an S corp because there's more tax advantages. Which you'll have to talk with a tax professional about this, because we're not too savvy in that department yet, but we're trying to work on that right now.
Yep.
But we do know that you can open up an S corp usually once your profits become more than 50% from based off of your total revenue, and then if you're making about more than $60,000 in gross revenue, you kind of want to start an S corp. But we're not
Right.
at that point yet. We're still working on receiving some revenue.
Hopefully, I'm sure one day that'll happen.
Yeah, and like one day you can actually receive revenue is if you rent your house out to your own business. That's why we want to have an LLC.
Yeah, we're looking into that. We're trying to potentially maybe lease the property out to ourselves, but there's like things that we're trying to research, and hopefully everything's like legal and everything can be done and recorded, on taxes and stuff. So we're trying to figure that part out. But yeah, apparently you can also rent out to yourself 14 days maximum tax free. But after that, I'm guessing you pay taxes. But that's a good like little thing to know, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And like moving into how they're changing taxes and the new the next year, the Dems have kind of brought to the table that they're trying to push back the estate tax on transfer. So if you were to like sell a business or a house that's, you know, very high in value, like at least over $11 million, you wouldn't have to pay taxes, but over that amount you have to pay like 45%. And what the Dems are trying to do is, and it's actually going to be happening next year, is they're moving it down to 2.5 million. So if you're moving money, um, that's over 2.5 mil, you definitely got to be a little bit more creative. And something you could do is just give your someone in your household or your wife or a family member an LLC, and then use them as like a service, and then pay them a salary every year to do that service. It has to be reasonable, obviously. So if they're doing marketing, you know, you can pay them 60K or something, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And then another option could be that you open up an LLC that's a charity. So it specifically has to be like a 501(c)(3).
Like a private.
Yeah, and then you have to just make sure that you're paying yourself back over time. Like, because there's certain limits per year that you can do, that you can write off. Like, if you think about the Amber Heard case, I know that she had an issue with paying back her charity. Like, she wasn't showing. She said she was gonna do it, and she said she was gonna do it this amount every year for the next X years. She ended up not actually doing it, and that was like a part of the case that led to her loss. So shout out Orlando Bloom. I think he's gonna be in another movie.
You mean Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp. I knew I did that wrong.
You're funny, man.
Johnny Depp is gonna be in a movie now, so he got
Yeah.
his credit back,
His reputation, I guess.
his reputation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess ties to the real world. You know, real world applications were attempted. It was an attempt, but she failed because she didn't pay, I guess, what she needed to pay. I'm not 100% sure on the details. I know you kind of looked into it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we
Can't get the
recommend
name straight, but
getting a yeah. This is why we recommend getting a professional to help you with all of the things that we're talking about today, which include taxes.
yeah, I mean that's what
And
we're doing.
creating an LLC, strategizing, business development.
Yeah,
Even today, we met a friend. Shout out Mo. He mentioned that you can go to your local college and just they have entrepreneur clubs, and you can get free advice. Honestly, if
yeah.
you
So if
have a
you're
degree, for
student-
those who did go to college, but you don't really need to go to college to become a millionaire.
Yeah, I mean if you're already in college, or university, whatever it is, you know, and you're thinking about creating an LLC and you're not sure what, I mean that's a great place to start. You know, is with your local entrepreneurial club or whatever it is. I know at Towson there's something like that. I think it was called Paperclip. I'm not sure the exact name, but there's definitely programs out there for universities and stuff for people that are, you know, they want to be an entrepreneur. They have those tendencies and they want to kind of expand on that. They can definitely look into that, and that's a good idea to do.
Yeah, and like so, I just want to touch on another route that you can do to save some on taxes with your LLC is if you can actually create an LLC that's a marketing company as well, and that supports your original LLC, and then that way you would be able to offload some money to that LLC account and then write it off of your main business. Another thing you could do is you could hire a college student or an unpaid intern and pay them a stipend, and that way you can write that off as well, and then that student will be able to write off $2,500 for education credits, depending on how much money their parents make, because you know that's all FAFSA related stuff. But it's funny how taxes branch off into different levels because it's depending on how the government wants people, the wealthy, to move through the tax code. They have different incentives out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, from what I'm understanding, it just seems like kind of reinvest into your own business, your own LLC to, you know, so if you made all this money, use income, use all that, some of that money to reinvest into the business, and more likely than not, you won't pay as much taxes because that money is not, you're not taking home that money. It's going right back into the business. So yeah, that's kind of like in layman's terms, I think is what is called from what I'm hearing. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to keep in mind for those that plan on owning a business or starting one, you know, things that they can do to like avoid shelling out so much money for tax season.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And there's also ways that you can avoid on capital gains, which, you know, once you become really good at this and you're starting to flip houses and make large earned income, which is when you'll be flipping houses, you know, there's different ways you can move that through to have it not taxed.
Yeah,
For
there's
example, you could like if for example you buy a shopping mall or like some large commercial project, then you can actually write off 131st of it throughout all of the years that you the next 31 years, like one like each year that amount of what it's worth, 131st of what it is worth that year. And then you can also reduce the purchase price of what you bought it for down depending on what is inside of that shopping mall. Like if there's like desks and stuff, like a whole classroom that they left behind, each of those desks that are small amounts that uh, can be written off the total purchase price of the building or the shopping mall, whatever large expense you're doing. And this is called a lost seg study.
right.
So
They did mention a few things. The event we attended. They also mentioned stuff about legal child labor. Well, it's kind of like putting your kids on payroll. There's like a minimum amount that you can pay that's tax free, I believe. Definitely look into that if you have any children and you're in this journey, or thinking about starting on this journey. That's something that you can look into. It's a good idea. There's a few things I know you mentioned some of them. There's like 7 things that we kind of learned from that event that help a business tax wise.
yeah, shout out Brian McBroom and REIA,
Yeah.
nationalreia.org. They have a bunch of education webinars on there that John and I will be looking into and letting you guys know about what we hear.
Yeah, so stay tuned, subscribe, check that out. We'll have more information on different topics. There was a few there that we saw right before the podcast. We're kind of looking at it. Yeah, so I mean that's a good way, or you can do your own research, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, another author that I recommend is Scott Galloway. We have some statistics, related to taxes, and related to why it's important to become wealthy. And what we notice already is that the top 1% of Americans avoid $175 billion per year using tax havens, for example. So what they're doing is they're taking out loans that are backed by assets they have. So like an IRA or something like that. So you don't have to pay taxes on it until you technically withdraw your IRA or the profits you make from that flip. You don't have to be taxed on until you withdraw your IRA, right?
Right.
Or you can even like on an LLC, once you get a paydex score, then you should be able to uh, use that as credit. And once you get to a level 80 score, you can definitely start getting loans with that.
Yeah, it's like a credit score for businesses. Like we have like our credit scores like individually. Businesses also have their own form of it. It's called the Paydex score for those who don't know what that is. But yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind. Building once you got that stream of income, you're able to build, take loans and build that Paydex score up. Yeah, and then like you were saying, there's like tax avoidance strategies for businesses to try to stay or keep the taxes minimum. At a minimum.
Yeah, and Amazon did that really really super nicely, and also Elon Musk, people like this who have been really really good at using these strategies. For example, Amazon only paid $162 million in taxes in 2019, which is 1% of its entire income pre-tax. And so, because what they're doing is they're making a lot of money and then they're funneling it into other properties like all over the country. They probably started, once they started in Seattle, they probably started buying other states, properties in other states, and then funneling their money through 1031 exchanges and different, avenues to do that. You could create a trust, and then give that trust to family members. And what that means is that given you have taken away the ability of the state to own your assets after you pass away, and then you're allowing it to flow to whoever you give the trust, whoever's in your trust.
Right.
And Amazon did pretty good at using some or all of those things that I had mentioned.
Yeah,
But
it's interesting.
this is not really that feasible for like working class people. It's not really, the tax code is not really centered towards that. Like they know what kind of they're trying to get out of you if you're a middle class. But if you're wealthy, you can avoid things. And
Well, if you have a business, you can avoid things and you get money. Or like if you have a successful business and you're making money, there's things that you can do to try to minimize the taxes. Like it's from like layman's terms, what Amazon is doing is just buying and reinvesting into their business through assets, which is like property. And what they do with those assets is up to them. But if they're buying it, that's kind of like the minimum they have to do is just go out and do that. So yeah, I mean, those are things that I feel like would help a business when you're at a certain point where you're making a lot of income in your business and you have nowhere to put that money in. You know, maybe property is a good investment, or there's other avenues I'm sure that they can look into. But yeah, all tax avoidance strategies.
Tax avoiding strategies, and to end the pod, the future of this is looking good because like traditionally both Democratic and Republican uh, uh, presidents have not really fared well with the IRS, meaning that they are not really nice to them and they don't really like them too much to make the tax code more complicated, because then that prevents the president from being reelected. So long story short, the IRS has been kind of basically defunded recently. And what that's doing is it's kind of making the middle class be taxed even more now, because the IRS is not doing as many audits, and that's what the IRS is really only gonna get money from the wealthier people who actually have taxes to pay, but they're, like we talked about, they're avoiding them because they're using these strategies with their LLCs. So, and I predict that this is going to continue into the future, and the only product of this, the only outcome of this, is that the IRS, or sorry, the government is going to have to start taxing more because our debt ceiling is going so high. Like right now, our 1 year of GDP doesn't cover the debt that we have right now. So, and this is the first time in history that we've had like over 100%. The debt ceiling is over 100%.
Damn.
But yeah, that's, the wealthy avoid taxes. They can also evade taxes. And that about 36% of evaded taxes are just from the top 1% of households. So just for the last note, if you're wealthy, you can get out without paying taxes, and that's a good thing.
True. Yeah, I mean, it's two sides to the coin. You don't always have to be, you can end up, or rather a better way to put it is, you can end up on the wealthy side. And if you do make some money, or if you have an LLC, you start a business, paying attention to the taxes and finding ways to not pay as much, I mean, it benefits the person or the business, and in turn, and in the end, it also benefits the person that works for the business. If it's your own business, you benefit from it too. But yeah, two sides to every coin. Yeah, it's interesting to think about, and yeah, you do have a point there. Maybe taxes will increase, or they might tax the middle class more. I'm not 100% sure, but that's a good take on it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we don't have too much data, but on your point, stay tuned. Follow us on the journey to financial freedom so that you can get these tax secrets, and we'll talk with you on the other side.
Yep. Thanks for watching.